Hello, so today's video is just going to be a short little one. Both of these are deactivated, but it's going to be on one of these, the number 69 British bakelite grenade. So this is a quite weird thing, but it's quite interesting, and it's a relatively good design, but they did have like safety flaws essentially that was what led to them not really carrying on. So what I have on the left, for an example, is a Soviet F2 grenade that you can see is deactivated. The F2 was based on, was it the French F1? And there was also lots of, other similar pineapple grenades of World War II. And the reason I keep this one sort of for the video, to make an example, is Britain had what was called the Mills bomb, I think quite commonly. I think it was the number 6 grenade, was it officially? And the Mills bomb was like one of these, but even bulkier. And it was your standard defensive grenade that you could throw it from cover quite effectively. And it would have sort of an 80-meter kill radius or something insanely big like that. But you wouldn't want to use it in an open field if you're advancing as soldiers because of the fact how far the shrapnel went. So Britain basically decided they wanted an alternative to the Mills bomb, and they came up with this thing. So the number 69, and you can see it says that underneath, and apparently it's a Mark II according to the top, is basically an impact grenade. So how this works is that once it's thrown, it explodes on impact. So if I can get the top off with one hand, let's try and squeeze that between my legs, there we go. This is just literally a cover, that's all that bit does. Then what you'd have had here is those holes there would be where the grenade's pin goes through, like the safety pin. And that would have basically a long roll of tape or sort of string type stuff attached to it, a bit like a shoelace. And then there was a lead weight on the end of it. And your fuse mechanism is in this bit, the bit you can hear rattling. You can unscrew that, but it'll get my hands really dirty, and I've got a cut, so I don't want to do that. So, but there's basically a ball bearing and a little weak spring in there. And the idea is that when you throw it, the tape unravels, and because it has a lead weight on the end, that pulls the pin out. So during flight, the pin comes out. So then when it lands, the impact, no matter what way it impacts, will break the sort of very weak spring or like little protective bit that's in there because the pin is no longer holding back the weight, and it starts the detonation system off. So I believe this is just the second bit of the sort of filler type thing there, and a big bakelite screw there as well. They put the main sort of explosive filler in, because obviously you've got the sort of detonation primer type thing in these, and then you've got the main explosive filler, and they used a variety of things. So the main grenade is bakelite, and apparently bakelite is supposedly very good, a bit like steel, at flying into little horrible bits of shrapnel that maim you and murder you. But they also put apparently a bit of like actual shrapnel filler in this as well, just to enhance the effect. But yeah, it's quite an interesting grenade, because essentially all you would do to prime this is pull this off, unscrew the lid, and then literally chuck it, and that's it. That's all you have to do. You don't pull the pin out yourself or anything like that. And apparently they did very reliably detonate. However, the problem with these, there's like two safety concerns from what I could understand from reading up on them. One is if the pin comes out prior to when you actually want to throw it, say for example you've pulled this off for whatever reason, and then you've, for whatever reason, the pins come loose there, it's very, very hard to even put this pin back safely without the impact, doing that. If you hear literally that, apparently that's all it would take, that rattle to set the grenade off. So once you've done that, your hand gets blown off or you get blown to pieces. The other problem is the ball bearing used in the detonation sort of thing of the fuse actually will fly much further than the grenade's explosive radius and regular shrapnel radius. So if you're really unlucky, you might throw this, you might be outside of its official kill radius, but that ball bearing gets propelled by the explosion back at you or somebody else on your side, and you're killed or maimed by the ball bearing. Which is apparently one of the reasons they sort of stopped using that kind of system. Because, obviously, that's the weak part of it, that it's meant to have an official radius, but there's one bit in it that will fly much, much further than that radius. But yeah, in terms of priming it, though, as I said, if it had the, because it's deactivated, you don't have to hold the spoon down and pull a pin. Literally, all you would do is unscrew the safety cap, and the safety cap is literally there so it won't, the pin won't come out in your pocket, because when the cap's on, it's pretty hard to do that one-handed. So when the cap's on, all that's going to happen is, the pin literally physically can't come out. So you pull that out, and then immediately throw it, and then it will explode on impact, you know, a few meters away. Obviously, I don't know if there's a minimum arming distance, as in, I don't know if you literally dropped it, if there wouldn't be enough room for the weighted sort of string on it to travel before it pulls the pin out. But obviously it's not something you'd want to test. But yeah, so it's an interesting thing. These were built from 1940 onwards, I believe, in two types. I believe this is the Mark II, as the lid said, which has a slightly different fuse mechanism than the Mark I, but both essentially work the same way. But all they essentially are is you twist the lid off and then you throw it. And gravity, you know, momentum, arms the grenade in flight, and then when it lands at any angle, you hear that ball bearing shake around. That would set off the explosive filler. And yeah, apparently they were good offensive grenades. It's just the problem was with them is that they were a bit more dangerous than they'd planned on them being. You know, the kill radius could be bigger than what they expected. So obviously what most nations actually did, if you look at the Soviets, they had this as a defensive grenade, and then they would make a grenade of the exact same sort of, you know, pull and arming mechanism with just a smaller grenade, like was it the RDG-5 or something it was called? Or RDG or RGD, whichever one it was, 5, and the F1 or F2 was their sort of defensive grenade. But most nations just did this, where you had like one type of grenade for, you know, defensive roles and one for offensive, and they looked slightly different, so you could tell them apart. But Britain, yeah, in World War II came up with this weird bakelite thing, which is actually really interesting. But, again, it was apparently very reliable. As soon as you throw it, it will always explode on impact. That apparently always worked. The problem was, you know, the couple of safety issues, which meant you might be holding it, or you might still be hit by it, even though you shouldn't be. Because of the, you know, these were deadlier than they were meant to be, kind of thing.